from the BOP, the BLERD official podcast. We are so excited that you are here. Oh my gosh. This week is an exciting week for us because, as you know, we are like everybody. We have been watching the show Moon Knight all week. Yes. We have been wanting to discuss this since the first episode, but it's finally over and we can talk. The ban of talking about it has been lifted. Let me introduce my co-host. Let me introduce my co-host, Hilton George. How are you?
Oh man, I'm excited. I even got my little scarab hat.
Yes.
You know, I said I got some Egyptian gear in this place.
Hilton.
I got to find it because we're gonna be talking about Moon Knight, and we got to get it together. So I had to get my outfit right so I can come out here with your proper authority. Right?
Wear it.
Yeah, I love it. Christi Renee, she is here. Christi, you are like the queen of hairstyles. Like every episode, you got something new. And I love it.
This is the fresh out of the shower dew. This is like
me too. If you see me like messing with my hair all day, because it's like, you know, when you wash your hair, it's like soft, so it's like sticking to my face. It's like I should have washed it last night.
Well,
girl
this
problems.
Is it. Fresh, wet. Just let's go. And
I
also have something to mark the moment of sharing Moon Knight. This is one of my Mother's Day gifts. It's a moon. It's a moon.
Oh, look at that.
I don't know if
Mother's Day.
I will see it.
I love it.
So and I wore white because, you know, he's in white. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to go with the theme. I'm always ready for costume.
I love it. Guys,
so I'm happy to be here. Let's get it.
I am happy you're happy because I'm happy that we're talking about this show. I'm happy that we're reunited and it feels so good. We usually, you know, we'll talk to each other once a week. And so we have to wait the whole week to like go over things. And
we're thread masters though. I mean, you got to give us some credit because we got a fierce thread that we can we use the thread.
Emergency, the hotline.
Yes, it's totally the hotline. We always, we keep in constant communication all week. Yeah. Well, anytime anything major happens in life or any major show happens, we throw it in there just to see if we all want to get into it. Moon Knight was one of those shows. We knew we were counting down to it. I had wanted to see it. I'm a huge fan of Oscar Isaac. I loved him since, you know, Star Wars. And I mean, he's just been a phenomenal actor and he did not disappoint in Moon Knight. He was amazing. And I mean, we're just going to give general opinions. My general opinion of the show, episode 1, I was hooked. It was probably one of the best, well-written first episodes that gave you everything that was gonna just like almost every episode unloaded so much. Like there was so much to process in every episode. I don't know how they crammed it in into 6 episodes and it didn't feel crammed. It didn't feel rushed. It felt informative. It felt surprising. It felt just amazing. So my first impression of it was I was hooked. I loved it. What was your first impression, Hilton?
Well, we talked about it a little bit on one of our previous shows, and we talked about how the Nolan-esque writing of it and shooting and directing of that first episode, if you remember Memento, was an indie film that he kind of cracked in where you were seeing everything through the eyes of the protagonist, who in this case was Steven, a character who works in this museum, and he's got DID, dissociative identity disorder. But we don't know that until we get into the episode and he has these blackouts and he wakes up somewhere having done something and he's trying to navigate this. And so I thought it was a brilliant way to tell the story and kind of introduce us to one singular character. Let us get attached to that character. Let us look through that character's eyes and discover the world as they do. The best way to start this off, and it just paid off so big. Is probably one of the reasons why we're able to cram everything into 6 episodes and do all of the things that they did and create these devices that allowed this very talented Oscar Isaac to play ostensibly off of himself in in these different
so many
scenarios.
scenes. It was just him and him. So many scenes. You know how they shoot these things. Like it's just him, and he's probably playing against. He probably wasn't even playing against a stunt double. He was playing against a golf ball or something that was posted. Because that's how they do.
With
that's
all the dots.
When you do the green screen, those other characters aren't there. It's literally you're talking to yourself. So that really tells you how great it is. Or they have like someone who's a stunt person who's kind of standing there and they're dressed in green and they're just there to be like that figure, something for you to play off of. But you brought up such a good point. Steven was such an endearing character. He was like instantly you met him, you liked him, you loved him, he just was this little goofy guy, like you said, that worked at worked at a museum and had a fascination with Egypt and had a fascination with all these things. And little did he know how connected he was to all of them. But Christi, what was your first impression of Moonlight?
I loved it. I mean, overall, it was beautiful. I thought that, oh God, yeah, the perfect way. I don't even know how it would have worked if we had been introduced to Mark first.
Right.
But Steven, really falling in love with that, the meekness and the humbleness of that character. I also want to, again, thoughtful. I think that's my overall word. It was very thoughtful. And I thought that it was incredibly important, and I'm glad we're talking about it in this month because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this was a mental health movie. I mean, it addresses the issue of those mental health scenarios, we'll say, and so that was.
I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I realized, like, I had a fan on, and I was like, "What is all that noise? I'm hearing all this, like," and it was the freaking fan, and I was like, how do I turn this off? Like, how do I do it? And so I was waiting for your conversation. I was like, okay, keep going, Christi. Just ignore me. And she stops. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Well, guys, I mean, it is what it is. My fan was on. I had to turn it off.
Don't you edit.
I was like, we are going to sound like we are in a tornado the whole show.
And the funny thing is, how we usually hear everything? I hear that now. I don't hear that at all.
Well, I didn't hear anything either.
I could hear it. I could just hear the buzz. And I was like, why is there it was just kind of like sorry, guys. Welcome to the BOP, the BLERD official podcast.
It's really real over here. It's real time.
It's so real. It's so real.
Generally, I was automatically hooked. Again, I love visually stunning things. And so naturally they nailed that. And this guy, I mean, Oscar is just he's great. I mean, he is phenomenal in both of those roles. I don't feel like they're doing split screen. I feel like he really is talking to a piece of himself. It felt so believable. So it was great. The action, of course, whenever Moon Knight shows up, Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke. Oh my gosh.
Yes. The evolution of Ethan Hawke.
Alone. Yeah.
He's had a great couple years. Like Ethan Hawke has been diving into characters and like I've had a whole new appreciation for him as an actor just on the last like 5 years, the roles he's picked and the things that he's taken chances on. And he's you can tell he's one of those actors who's very particular about what he does and how and he's in a position where he can be, he can be particular about what characters he wants to play. Yeah, and oh my gosh, he was so great in this.
He was playing that character. He said that he was playing him off of like David Koresh type of cult leader.
Yeah,
and that was his archetype that he kind of built the character's foundation in. And so you see that interaction of what is a Marvel staple. It is the semi-sympathetic villain. This guy actually has a philosophy. He actually has something other than, the Joker-esque madness and chaos. I want to kill as many people as possible. He actually has a working philosophy, and he's thinking that this is the best thing for the world. And therefore, he is going to spread that gospel. And he has surrounded himself with people who also believe that. And it's just really interesting. They worship him. They worship his God that he's the avatar for, which is Amit. Who is and this is the mechanics of it. They're very, very closely adhered to Egyptian theology and the pantheon of Egyptian gods and their function. because all of the Egyptian gods have a job. And Amit's job is to devour the souls of the imbalanced heart. So Anubis is, when you die, Anubis takes your heart and weighs your heart against a feather. And you are supposed to live such a life that your heart would be as light as a feather, and therefore the scales balance. And then you get to go to the reed field of reeds. But if not, Amit would devour your soul. Now, this whole concept was around Amit saying, why wait until people do bad things to imbalance the scale when I have the power to see if you will ever imbalance the scale in your life from whenever you meet me, and I can kill you now if you're ever going to be bad, and we'll just clear the world of everyone who's ever going to be bad before they do anything bad. Well, it's 9 out of 10 people, that's for sure. Yeah, and hence the apocalyptic nature of that approach. And so this war is happening amongst the gods, and their avatars, which are Ethan Hawke and our character Steven, i.e. Mark, i.e. Jake, which we'll get into later, Moon Knight, who are kind of chasing after this whole idea of resurrecting this imprisoned god so that she can go about devouring the world's evil doers and evil doers to be. So it's an amazing story. It's got amazing scope, and it's self-contained. I really like that. I like that it barely touched the other boundaries of the MCU. It really kind of happened in its own little bubble, and we didn't really have to know a whole lot about the other aspects of the MCU in order to enjoy this. They do such a good
job at that. Like they always do such a good job at that, whether or not you want to take a deep dive and take on all the properties and get into all the different characters that will eventually cross paths, because we know that's basically what they're doing the next 4 or 5 years, is they're planting all these seeds, and then they're all going to cross paths again, because they know how big that is. But I will go back to something else you said. Like, Marvel I love because they always are so respectful of different cultures. They're so respectful of, like, they were so respectful of the Egyptian philosophy and the story. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, I was obsessed with it. Like I was obsessed with the pyramids in Egypt and mummies and the different gods. And like anytime we studied that in school, I could not get enough. So, but they were so respectful of everything. And it was so beautifully shot. Like it just, like the scenery when it was like episode 2, we're in Egypt,
start right off.
No time. Like that's the other thing. They throw you right in, and it's like, catch your breath if you can, but you're in this world. You turned on the TV, you're in it, and we're going to take you on this journey. So for those of you who are out there and haven't seen Moon Knight yet, you know what we do. We take deep dives. We're going to unpeel this baby like an onion. So turn off, come back later. I don't know what you got to do, or sit and listen to this and then go watch Moon Knight, because we can't cover it all. We can't cover it all. So we talked about Steven. Now Steven, Oscar Isaac plays, like you said, multiple characters. He has this disorder. And Mark Spector is the person that Steven realizes, like, Mark keeps popping up, and it comes at a time when Steven is in danger. And Mark is kind of the muscle. Steven is the heart, Mark is the muscle. And he's like, turn it over to me. And up until this point, Steven's been blacking out and like waking up places and doesn't know how he got there. But it isn't up until this point that he realizes that something is wrong with me, and this guy, he's an assassin. Mark is like relentless, and what I loved was like Steven was very British and Mark was very American.
Right. You just created a Brit out of nowhere. Like that's so weird.
Yes, it was like so, and they moved like Oscar Isaac, like he moved differently, he held his hands differently.
Posture was very different.
Yes, like, I think we saw this type of performance I think best in the first Superman, when Christopher Reeve was trying to figure out that whole mystery of, when you take your glasses off, everyone recognizes you as Superman, but glasses make you a perfect disguise and no one recognizes you.
Right.
He slouched, he changed his speech pattern, he was bumbling, and people just could not make those connections. And we're watching Oscar Isaac just switching between these two personalities at some points, you know, almost on the minute, like without a whole lot of transition and drama. It's like, now you're talking to Steven, and bam, now it's Mark, and then bam, it's back to Steven. And especially if they're talking to each other in his own head, you know, it's just like, wow, like just the fact that you can keep track of that as an actor, because he was also a producer, you know, so he was kind of moving some of the story plot lines and had a stake in the story, as well as being, you know, the star of it.
Just wait till they all get in the same room. That's going to be hilarious. I just can't wait, because I know it's coming. I know it's coming.
Well, what I love about this new, what I love about the new batch of like kind of like the MCU, what they're rolling out, you know, they're obviously rolling out the multiverse, they're rolling out, you know, Spider-Man's deeper story, they're rolling out Moon Knight, like they're rolling out all these things, right? And they're even the Winter Soldier and Falcon and Wanda, like everybody's getting this whole new like curve, you know, it's like they're taking a hard turn with every single character, and it's like, whatever you thought you knew, you don't really know, right? And so what I love, though, is like characters like Moon Knight are so layered. Like, I mean, what I didn't expect was the breakdown of how he got, you know, he got this kind of, you know, he had this kind of, you know, multiple personality disorder. I thought, oh, he was born with it. You think, you know, you instantly go to the easy, like he was born with this, you know, whatever. What blew me away was that it came from trauma and came from childhood trauma, and like
all the big messages. Really heartbreaking.
Like heartbreaking childhood trauma. Like I was like, at one point I was like in the middle of the night, like, oh my gosh, what is this? I thought this was like
some of it was really hard. Episode 5 was really hard to watch for a lot of people. I know a lot of people online who are trauma survivors and you know, survivors of abuse by a parent or a relative, and you know, anyone who could connect with any facet of this very, you know, multifaceted episode was triggered. Like they really were like, I am not okay.
Well, I mean, you don't expect this for like a Marvel show.
No, not at all. They could have done, I mean, Karen, they could have done exactly what you said. They could have just glossed over and just said, oh yeah, he came from trauma, you know, he has a chemical imbalance, or just throw something out there and then let's move the story forward. But we spent so much time getting to know these characters, i.e., you know, Mark and Steven, and their background and their relationship, and how ultimately, you know, they came to be, what their function was, and you know what it was that kind of brought them about. And we just, every step we just got more and more acquainted, and we fell more and more in love with the character, which, I mean, like I said, you know, they could have just thrown a bunch of special effects and explosions
and I'd have been happy.
And a lot of people would have been happy with that. But the fact that we come out of here with an understanding of the character, you know, with a very, very deep narrative. And you know, we even got to know his wife, Layla. You know, just imagine having multiple personalities, but only one of your personalities is married. And your wife doesn't know about the other personalities and finds you living, you know, 20 minutes away from where you used to live with her, and you disappeared. And
it's a whole nother life.
And your wife is a badass. I love
and your wife is a badass.
Fierce, honey. I can't wait to see her evolve even more. Yeah.
Well, she ultimately turns into, I mean, I'm not jumping too far ahead here, but she ultimately turns into, her character is called the Scarlet Scarab. And in the comic book, this was a male character and a villain. But I think just like Marvel is off to do with the MCU and the MCU, they said, okay, we're going to take a character that exists, and maybe not a major character or a major villain, and we're going to remake them, and we're going to use them in this new canon and give them an opportunity to shine. And when I mean, you know, again, not stepping too far ahead of the story, but when I saw her come out as the Scarlet Scarab, I was like, yo, like, oh my God. Like,
I screamed too. I screamed. Well, going back a few steps, one of the big twists was all this time we were in love with Steven, right? And on their quest, because at one point they realized that they don't have a balanced heart. So in order for them to survive, in order for them to, kind of move forward in the story, they have to figure out how to balance it. But in order to balance it, they've got to face kind of the childhood. They've got to face every mistake he's ever made. They've got to face everything. So they're thrown into a room with all of these people, right, who are he's killed. And Steven's like, you've killed all these people? Like,
why is there a child in the back of this room? What are you saying on here?
But when they see the child, Mark almost he almost dies because he knows who that child is, which later is revealed to be his little brother who passed away from a tragic accident. But what is the big twist of all of this that just like I screamed was that we realized at one point in the story that Steven isn't the main character. He is the new person. Oh, sorry. He is the new person. I know I'm all excited. I'm hitting everything. I'm gonna knock all this shit off the table. That's how much I like it. He realizes that he was the one that was made up. And Mark tries to protect him from that. And I mean, what did you think, Christi, when they revealed that? Because I was like, oh my God.
I too screamed. We must have been screaming at the same time in different time zones. I think so. That was very fascinating. Again, I cannot say enough the thoughtfulness that went into this and picking it apart. Now, and I'm going to tell you, I'll be real honest, by the time there were so many times I had to question, like, okay, what is reality here? Like, is he really in a psych ward? Is this really? I'm still kind of like, we got to unpack this some more.
It was crazy. It was playing tricks with your mind.
That was the part, because I couldn't figure out who was actually here first, and who is the main. Who's the person that was actually born into the world, and then who was created with the trauma. So when that was revealed, I was like, oh, and typically you would think that the tough guy, because when he had that poster and I was thinking all along until the reveal that, okay, little Steven created this tough guy, narrative, I guess, to escape, and Lord, when it was a flippity flop,
I
was like, oh, he actually created like a meeker, milder, or is that really who it is?
He created peace. He created a moment of peace. It almost felt like,
function. I think it was really more about the function. You have a character that was in this state of self-loathing, and we're not spoiling anything here, because if you watched it and you're with us, we
don't care about.
He was responsible for the death of his brother. He took his brother. They were playing in the cave they weren't supposed to be in. And he was just being a tough big brother, making dumb decisions, and his brothers drowned in the cave because of him, and his mother blamed him. And over the following years, she never let that go. She was in a state of constant
depression
and mental agony,
and she took it out on him, and she was beating him and yelling and verbally abusing him and blaming him at every turn for his brother's death. I mean, you can't imagine having that. So him creating Steven was obviously, for one reason, Steven was ignorant of all of this. So you have this creation of a child that maybe his mother would love, right? For one, and two, would not be burdened with the knowledge of what you had done or what you had seen yourself to have done as a kid, and the guilt and the pain from that. So he was kind of like this, this idealized, meeker character that was actually there to be liked and be loved and to only see the good things of the world. But
and live a simple life.
But what we didn't know, when it comes to DID, most experts will tell you, if there's ever creation of a character like that who is separate from the trauma and the pain and the anger and the guilt, another personality is liable to be born that is there to bear all of that. And that's where we have Jake, who's a real, and the funny thing about Jake is that we find out that we have been seeing Jake in different parts of the show when we didn't even know that we were looking at Jake. Like,
I need to go back. Like, I wanted to go back because I gotta go back and find that.
I'm telling you,
exactly.
Watching his facial expression, listening to his accent. I saw several breakdowns of this where it's like, in this moment, that's Jake. And anytime you saw him drinking alcohol, that was Jake. Like when he woke up in episode 2, where he was drinking alcohol and the room was half wrecked, and he opens up and you see it's Cairo and the pyramids. That's Jake, because Mark is a soldier. He's focused on the mission. He would never do anything that would try to, blow things out of the box or make himself, inebriated or not focused. Whereas Jake is like, show me someone to kill. That's what I'm here for. And so,
Jake
that was really fascinating, you know, and they hid him from themselves. Like even they were so scared of Jake that they denied his existence, you know, and didn't even act like he existed.
Well, it was until that final episode where, you know, Mark blacks out and he realizes like, hold up, what just happened? And that was when you got the glimpse of like, hold up, that wasn't, Steven's not here. Mark is not here. Who the hell is here? Like, you know, and
who killed all these people?
Oh my gosh. Well, I want to pay some more attention to Ethan Hawke. I know we brought him up, but he was, I mean, gosh. And that was the thing, Christy. I agree with you totally. There were times I was like, okay, is Ethan Hawke really real? Or is he like, you know, is he the psychiatrist, or is the psychiatrist like probably someone else? And he's just envisioning, Ethan, because this is the enemy. I just was so like, what is real? What is not real? But I think that's the beautifulness or the beauty of this show is that it is so multi-layered, and Ethan Hawke is one of those layers that I
loved how they just did these. They showed those little nuances, like, but they didn't have to make a big point about it. It was just something to keep in mind, like when they show the broken glass in his shoes and how he walks around on broken glass. But they don't make it part of the plot. But it is, you know what I mean? It's just like that layer, that little thing to sit back in a file that, remember, that's the character we're dealing with here in this particular world. But then, you know, again, I don't know, is he a doctor or not? But he was very good. Like I said, his voice alone is frightening.
Let me explain it real quick.
Please explain it. Okay. Please explain it.
So the asylum.
You're like our expert.
Right.
I had to do my own research and it was not apparent.
And everyone else who was in the gray area, because we were like, what the fuck is happening?
So they're on the ship, which is kind of like this place where you kind of make that world in the ship your place to transition from your life to the afterlife. And if you have stuff to work out, it's a construct of your own consciousness you're projecting out. So he projected out an asylum because he's aware of his mental illness. He's probably spent some time in one of these places in some point of his life. And, you know, so it's kind of ideal. But what has happened is that anytime you see him in the room with the Ethan Hawke character, that's just him being the personality that's not up front, either interacting with the other two or dominant and walking around using the body. So anytime you would see him like transition and someone would come out, if you watch it again, if they're in the room and they drug him or something like that, the character that was in the room with him that ends up getting drugged or starts freaking out and then blacks out ends up somewhere else and wakes up like, what am I doing out here in the hallway or whatever. And then when he comes back, there's something different about him. Jake had a broken nose. So when you saw him appear with the broken nose, that was Jake he was talking to. Right, Jake. And then when he woke up one time, it was Mark in there.
I gotta watch this again.
So the Ethan Hawke character was just a device in his own mind of projecting just the character, because the whole place was full of people that he had seen and interacted with over the last month.
Right.
That they weren't dead. Like they're actually running around, but they're like in this asylum playing these roles of either patients or orderlies or stuff like this. So it's just a cast of projected characters. And Ethan Hawke's character is just one of those projections who's dealing with the submissive personality at any given point. And the only way that personality becomes free, i.e. outside of the sarcophagus. If you saw when he had to break Steven out of the sarcophagus, right? Yes. First thing that happened to Steven is he kind of started freaking out in the office with the psychiatrist. And then he woke up in the sarcophagus, set him free, and then he never made it back into that office again until he got put there. So it's like this really weird. Yeah, so he's not actually there. This is there. Yes.
Right. This is just okay.
So it really is okay. But Harrow is real. Like he's somewhere.
He's a real person. Yeah.
He's a real, but
not the doctor.
He's the reality. Okay, got it. So the reality is the part with the.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. So this opens up another question. My other question is, when the show ends, Harrow is in the psychiatric ward. So was that real?
Now that psychiatric ward was real because he had absorbed a god, and he was imprisoning a god in his body, and really was not very functional at all. And so that's where he ended up going. Now, how he got there and all this, because he was semi-catatonic, you know, at the time when they imprisoned Amit in his body, but they broke him out and they handled business. So I don't think we're gonna see Ethan Hawke again.
Jake killed him. He's gone.
Jake was like, "Hey, you can see him. Look, I knew it was Jake when he kicked the wheelchair. You see him kick the wheelchair when he come around."
Like, obviously I knew there was something going on. Like, I was like, there's something going on. They're hinting to something else. I knew that Mark had other personalities, but I didn't know, like, I haven't followed Moon Knight and I haven't followed the comics. So I'm really, really like the perfect audience because it's all brand new to me. But I knew something was coming, but I was like, why is he kicking why is he doing that? Why is he so aggressive? Like, I just kept like kind of laughing. But one thing I loved is when we would see Moon Knight and we would see Moon Knight as Mark Spector, or we would see Moon Knight when Steven had him. Like, the two costumes were perfect. Like, Steven was like Dapper Dan, you know, and, you know, obviously like Moon Knight was like a mummy. Like, I mean, that costume was really extraordinary.
It is great.
And he had fighting skills, because remember, on the ship, they had come to the reason why their hearts were balanced at one point was because they had resolved, you know, the conflict of, you know, letting Steven kind of participate in this life that is Mark's. As a fully functional character. So he's like, wait, if you can fight, then obviously I can fight too. So let me go in and do it. So now that he's kind of more free, he's able to tap into the training and all that stuff. So he can be a badass in his suit, just like, and that fight was a demonstration of the resolution of those two characters. And somehow Jake managed to find his way into that one too, where he just black out and then everybody did.
I gotta go watch this all over again.
I know.
Now
the scene where Haro has him pinned and starts, you know, but looks like he's about to take him out right in his chest, and then he blacks out, and then like everybody's out.
Everybody's dead.
And Layla's sitting there like, what the hell was that? Like, you know, like we never really get to see Jake do what he does. But if I don't know why they haven't shown that, but I look forward to seeing Jake's footwork, because he got hands.
They had to save something for next season, because you know it's coming back. They had to save something for next season. So what did you guys feel as far as like, one thing I loved is when Layla becomes, you know, who she's going to become, and the little kid sees her and she's like, you're an Egyptian superhero. She says, you're a Middle Eastern superhero. And I was like, yes, Marvel. It's all like they do everything so thoughtfully. Like, they understand what this means. Like, because I mean, you think about this community, you know, Egypt, the Middle East, all of that. They have been, you know, in the eyes of the press, the world, they have gone through horrific things, and at the hands of us. Like, we don't, you know, Americans don't want to talk about it, but you know, there have been some horrific things that have happened in their countries that we have caused, that we have done, you know, we know, or those who admit it will know. So for them to give a superhero, you know, it was almost one of those, like the Wakanda moments, you know, when we have Black Panther, you know, when we got, you know, I mean, it was just one of those moments where I feel like every little kid deserves to have someone, you know.
It was the Wakanda moment, because remember, it's that same type of moment that they hit on the last couple of scenes of Black Panther, where the kid walks up to him on the basketball court and says, "Who are you?" And you kind of go to the credits. It's that kind of a moment. I'm not even Egyptian, and I was feeling it. Like, whoa. But see, here's the thing. The actress, whose name is not right in front of me, and it's very hard to pronounce, and I still haven't mastered it, but the actress that plays Layla is Egyptian. And the director of the series is Middle Eastern and Muslim. So the authenticity of all of these individuals who have come together to make the moment happen, I think we can feel it in the portrayal of the characters and the authenticity of those moments. And again, you know, kudos to Marvel and Disney, because they didn't have to do that. They could have thrown anybody into that suit. They could have glossed over the first, Egyptian superhero. But they said, you know what? No, we're going to make this a moment, and it's going to serve the story, and it worked. It really worked. I mean, the internet is off the chain. I mean, I don't know if you follow cosplayers, but I guarantee you in the next 6 months, you're going to see a bunch of Scarlet Scarab cosplays coming out.
Is going to be off the chain. Let me tell you right now.
I'm finding me some white wraps and stuff. You know who I'm going to be? Y'all going to be, I'm going to blow your hair back. One of my other favorite characters on the show was the doggone hippo. I love her so much.
It's Taweret. It's like Taweret. It's hard to pronounce, but yes. Yes.
The hippo.
I was wondering if you would like that, because you don't like talking animals.
That's right. You don't like animals. You don't like animals. What's up?
I loved her. I love.
She turned your cold heart.
Hysterical. She had a I think that's it. I think it's the voice. I think it's the timing. I think it's the writing.
Story.
Exactly. So when you're pulled in, again, every timing is everything. And so the way that once she's comes into this, like, you're already in love with the whole storyline and characters. And she was she spoke in the most perfect of moments, when it's just chaos, quiet. Hello. And it's like, she had this tiny but yet firm and very commanding presence within that big ginormous looking thing. It's like, oh my God, that is perfect. It was
it's so funny because as the actual goddess Taweret is there, she's the goddess of maternity and protection and part of the process of going from death to the afterworld. So it's this very maternal, loving, hug me type of personality. And they totally captured it because this is not a character that's had like screen time in the comic books. Like this is something that really happened to Disney and a lot of deliberate decisions. Yeah. Well, no. It's an actual goddess.
She's in there. Okay.
That looks exactly like that and has that job. They just haven't put her on screen before. So the voice that you love so well, Christi, and the personality and all that stuff, that was something that they developed. And I think for that perfect combination of knowing what needed to be done. Like your heart is not balanced because your mind is, you need to go back in there. I mean, imagine the ultimate therapist. Like, she's like, look, you got to do this or you got to get the hell off my ship. So you got to get in there and you got to tell the truth.
Yeah.
You got to go in there and figure this out. You two got some issues you're not talking
real
about.
Life.
And they went in there and it was like couples therapy. One was like, tell me the truth. He's like, no, we're not going back in that room and it's too much trauma. And it was like all these breakthroughs that they had to force themselves to go through in order for them to kind of come to this resolution and realization of who he was. And it wasn't until then that they had any hope of balancing the scale, which, happened ultimately when Stephen falls over the edge. And then it's like a Castaway with Wilson, like instead of that same, like you kind of know he's not real because he's a construct of his psyche, but at the same time it's like Wilson, like like, I was like, oh my God, why am I getting so emotionally invested?
I know. Why?
And I want to touch on this, and I'm sure we're getting there, but what I find to be very unique again in this whole storyline and is that the humans are the avatars. Typically it's the other way around. You create these phenomenal. It's the gods have their avatars. So I thought that was really creative, and I just loved that because again, we think that we're the center of the universe, and again, we're in Marvel. So Lord, and after some of the things I've just recently seen, it's like, oh my God, this thing goes so far beyond. It just opens up more than what we can imagine. So imagine you are an avatar to, like, I'm an avatar to a god. That's
right.
And now here's something that's going to blow your mind, Christi. Okay, so if you're going to do a rewatch, this is what's going to happen.
Blow our mind, please.
Let me hold on to my headphones.
There's two things that you got to take note of. When you go into the antechamber where all the avatars come in and they sit behind the statue of the god, there's like 3 empty seats just in the council of gods that do not have an avatar or are not present for some reason, right? Yeah. And you see Bastet.
Are they bound?
Bastet is the cat goddess, right? Mm-hmm. But Bastet is the precursor to Bast, which is the bad. So maybe there's a reason why she's not in this pantheon, because she's kind of relocated her operation to protecting Wakanda. Now, you see what I mean? And then
I didn't even put that together.
You watch it, you see Bast is an Egyptian goddess that was incorporated by other African nations.
Because they forget that Egypt is in Africa. Many people forget
yeah, they've changed that
exactly. Now notice when they imprison Khonshu and he goes to put Khonshu's statue behind its little candle and all this stuff, there are other statues. This is not the first god they've imprisoned and put into the display. And I'm like, I want to see what other gods they've got locked away, because when the battle ensues between Ammit and the other gods, it's like only 4 or 5 of them that show up. And I'm like, you would think there's like a pantheon of like 30 gods in the Egyptian religion, and there's only 4 of them showing up. So there's probably a combination of gods that have been imprisoned for one reason or another, because you see their statues, somebody's in there, right? And some that might have kind of skipped town and said, I'm going to go and kind of protect some people further south down here in Wakanda or wherever. And Black Panther could be kind of like the avatar for Bast, in the same way that Moon Knight is the avatar for Khonshu. Wow. You know what I'm saying? So they're kind of setting the table geographically. And I think the actual gods are in another pocket dimension. He mentions it once or twice. I can't remember the name. So they are actual beings that, probably came here and then were worshipped, as opposed to the worship kind of creating the gods in the minds of men and then for, living off of that worship. But, only Khonshu and a couple of other gods are still hanging around trying to fix things, because he scolded them. He's like, y'all on the other side living in you stay here and you need to help the people. Yes. And you've abandoned Earth and the blah, 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 blah. So when you watch it again, you'll see it.
Yeah. I think the next time we do this and we watch a series together, we're going to need to have cliff notes, and we're going to need to have as I go along, I want to know all this stuff. But that's the thing. I had no clue. I didn't know the backstories and I didn't know what to look for, but I just knew there's so much here. You're going to have to watch this a couple times. I had to do that with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There were so many layers. And that's another one. We got to give, hold on. We have not recognized this. And I want to take a moment. And this is a moment of congratulations to our girl, Christi Renee. Christi Renee watched Loki. She watched the whole thing.
Thank you. Give me my bear. Give me my bear.
The Boogie with the Bear Award today. Yeah. And we obviously are talking Moon Knight, but we've got a few minutes. What did you think of Loki?
I loved it. I mean,
I knew you would.
I said I would. Because I always liked him in everything else. So I figured it just, it's so much. First of all, Luke Wilson. Is it Luke or Owen?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's
Owen. It's Owen. Owen. Luke is the other brother.
Owen, yes. Owen Wilson.
Owen was fantabulous in this. I just loved seeing him. Again, his comedic timing, his kids, all of that. It's so incredible.
Marvel gets it.
They get it. They just get it. It was great. All the different, all the different Lokis was hysterical. I mean, you got a black guy, you got an alligator, come on, or a crocodile, whatever he was. Either way, I had a nightmare about it, I'm sure, because those things give me nightmares.
Marvel's got two crocodile alligator gods now. What's going on, Marvel? What's happening?
Yes.
How did we get, what's happening over here?
I didn't even get to that ginormous one. At least the one in Loki, it was a little more, I could handle that one. That big one from Moon Knight, I was like, I'm devastated right now.
Hey, but her braids was on point though. She ugly, but her braids was on point though.
Locks was good. But yeah, I
yes, her braids was. Yes, they was.
I've been buried for 1,000 years, but I'm keeping my
her edges was right, her braids, everything. She had her nail polish.
Oh yeah, she was.
Okay, girl. I like her.
Yeah. Again, that goes back to that rich culture. They got it. They knew how to deck them out. I mean, all of the adornments were just spot on.
If you look at like the pictures and the, we've seen what's photographed inside the pyramids, and you see all of that. Like all of the way that they were dressed and the way that she looked and her hair, like you see that on a picture that was, created 100 million years ago or whenever that was, like that is kind of the crazy part about Egypt. Egypt was like, they always want to say, oh, aliens and this. And I go, no, we were just ahead of our time, give it up, like, come on now. It's obviously they painted it on the wall. Like, I mean, nobody came over here 20 years later and painted it. Like,
I was really interested to see what they were going to do, and I loved. I mean, the attention to detail in every piece of these are all none of this was original art or actual mummies or actual sarcophagi or anything like that. So these all had to be created.
Come on.
Yeah. Hey, look. Hey, that's a liberal arts education. That's a liberal arts education. Paying for itself. Hey, listen. Yeah. Whenever you say $30,000 in student loan debt, I drop a sarcophagi on you.
You better sarcophagi.
That's what that's for. That's what that does.
You better know how to sarcophagi.
That was worth a whole semester right there.
You better know how to use that in a sentence and conjugate that verb. You better know.
Not conjugate the verb.
You better know.
I give that a Schoolhouse Rock got me for that.
Listen, that was great. Sarcophagi. I had to call that out.
I almost was like, well, hold up now. Hold up.
I was going to say that the attention to detail, the attention to detail was amazing. I love the art.
Hilton is truly the expert on this episode for so many reasons.
I'm an English buff and lover of all things, words, but you got me on that one, and you get the award. Matter of fact, I'm so distracted for the rest of the show because I'm sitting here gonna think, how can I use sarcophagi in another sentence outside of this show?
This is the sarcophagi episode.
We're gonna put the word up now. Spell it. That's all I want you to do is spell it.
Use it in a sentence.
Use it in a sentence, please. I would never.
That was fantastic. That was a moment.
Yes.
Oh Lord.
That's somebody who reads a lot. That shows you, like, that's the evidence of a reader.
This is the face of somebody who pretends he reads. I just be looking at that. Just like,
Google it.
I was like, how? I know. This is my question. First, right? Y'all, we breaking shit today. We're knocking stuff over. I'm over turning off the fan mid-show. Okay, this is the ghetto episode of the block. Okay, we got issues. Things are happening.
Lord.
So let me know this. Oh, so this is the thing. Like someone like me who never read the comics. Right. I'm one of those. I would always say I'm one of those new Marvel. Marvel got me 15 years ago, whatever year that was that we had Iron Man. They got me, and they've never let me go. So for someone like this, who's like me and Christi, what do you suggest as far as like, because obviously the things that you're noticing, the layers that you're finding is because you've read the comics. Yeah, you grew up with this. So what do you suggest for someone like us? Let's say we're a new comic book reader. What would you suggest to just kind of open our minds to the world of Marvel? And it doesn't have to be anything to do with Moon Knight. It's just to kind of open you up to the new layers, the nuances of all this stuff. Because you obviously
like if you were to go to a comic book shop and pick up comics.
Yeah.
The funny thing about comic books now is that there are so many different interactions within the titles. When I started at age 9, if you picked up the X-Men, then it would just be a run of the X-Men. It would be kind of a singular. There'd be very few crossovers between X-Men and the Avengers, but now everything is weaving, so you can't just buy one title. I always recommend, as a great gateway drug, Spider-Man. Any of the Spider-Man comics are, because he's one of those characters that is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and he's kind of dealing with stuff in Queens for the most part, but he does get sucked into almost every one of these intergalactic, reality threatening, big bad stories. So he's kind of everywhere, and it kind of helps you as a story, to kind of walk in with a character who, you kind of it's easy to know him, even comic book people who aren't comic book people know who Peter Parker is and understand Spider-Man, where whether doesn't matter which multiverse Spider-Man you're reading, right? So that's a good gateway, because you're going to get an opportunity to meet all of these different characters from these different titles within the arc of a Spider-Man story. And he's easy to read. He's funny, not like Deadpool wisecracky, but he's like he's still got that teenager wisecrack, everyman.
He's got that teen spirit kind of energy. Yeah.
And you can make things even easier. They've got apps now where they have uploaded digitally the comic books from way back. Like I don't know how far back they go, but like they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of titles, so that you don't have to physically get up and go to a comic book shop and try to fish through and all this sort of stuff. You could say, hey, you know what? Maybe I want to read, Fantastic Four, the first 3 issues, and it's uploaded, and then you can scroll through with your tablet just like you would a Bible or any ebook. And that's a good way to do it too, because we're all busy. And I had the benefit of going to stores. I used to work at a flea market that had a bunch of comic book shops. So I would hang out in the comic book shop. I'd have to be shooed away, because I wasn't buying the comics. I was sitting there reading them. Your age's 9, you don't know. So that's a good start. And the good news is that what you're seeing on the screen is being, for the most part, the new canon. So you're not going to have like a whole lot of divergence. Disney owns Marvel for the most part. So the stuff you see on the screen, and might not be canon up to that point. But if you pick up a title, it's going to kind of treat the story as it adheres to the movie. So if you've been weaned off of the MCU as your intro to comics, and you go into the comic book shop and starts picking up the current titles, you're not going to have a big learning curve, because you're going to know a lot of the characters and get an opportunity to get to know them better.
And what I've heard from like insiders, like I go into the groups and, the real cynical people who like pick apart everything. They, one thing they always do is they stay true to what the comics have, they stay true to those stories. They might, take a little bit, longer to get to where it is, but it always gets to where it needs to go, or what the original story was about. But guys, I mean, if you haven't seen Moon Knight, you got to see it. It is an excellent series. It is only 6 episodes, but it feels like 20. Like you literally watch it, and it's very dense, but it doesn't feel like that. Like they knew when to add humor. They knew when to add, especially when you had some of the heavy issues. Like when you find out about Mark and Steven and how they coexist and why they coexist. And I mean, it's heavy. They still were able to get us through that, and we still enjoyed it. The action's amazing, the cinematography is amazing. Did I leave anything out, guys?
The score is amazing. It's just the music and the background and the sound effects. I mean, they treated this like it was a movie. Like this is shot like a movie. It's shot with the scale and the scope. It just, I'm thinking to myself, if this had come out in theaters and it was a 3-hour movie, it would have been amazing. That's how good it was.
I heard some familiar instrumentation, maybe, that put me in the mental state that I would feel, and I actually have this soundtrack downloaded on my phone. It's The Handmaid's Tale. I know y'all think I'm crazy. They do that.
It always comes back to The Handmaid's Tale with this one.
It's everything. I still got my cloak here ready. I'm ready. But listen, it has that. It does that deep dive type of feel, and it just
whatever that dread. It's almost like dread.
It's a dread.
Whatever
it's the sound of dread. But it's good. It's fantastic. I don't know what is that. Oboe. I don't know what it is.
Right. Whatever instrument that is. The oboe, the bass. I don't know. You know what, Christy? You've got a new assignment, because if you enjoyed Loki, but this one I think you'll really love. I encourage you to watch The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You are very much aware of like. You've seen the series?
Oh, not the series. Sorry.
Okay, you need to watch the series.
Okay.
Because it deals with social political issues that we deal with. It deals with everything that you like to debate, discuss. I mean, just think about it. We have a Black man becoming Captain America. So the patriotic symbol of the MCU, they've handed that over to a Black man, and they don't do it and just do it. They do it, and they show you what the world feels like, what the world. I mean, it really touches on.
Okay.
You're gonna love it, and it's a different series. Like, it's a different series.
When Cap hands the shield over to our guy Mackie, I was wondering, is that where Captain America and this series picks up?
It picks up right from there.
And if they were going to be true to the black, like the real Black.
No, they're true to the black.
To the new Beyonce is Black, like that.
Yeah.
Black.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you'll see. Okay, and it's not cosmic. It's not space and gods and stuff. It is very
real world.
Very real world.
Real world.
And brother trying to get a loan from the bank, but that kind of that kind of stuff.
Can't get along. Like, I mean, it's like literally they touch on things that are so real life. And so, like, the Black story, and they don't sugarcoat anything. That's what I love about it. They don't sugarcoat it. They handle it with care. They don't sugarcoat it. And hopefully, if you really watch and you're really a fan, you're able to learn something. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I learn something every time I watch these movies and shows. I mean, it's so good.
That's what
I know you'll love it. I know you'll love it because you love
all that.
You love all of that. Yeah. And we can talk about it, even though it's been out. It's been more than a couple years that it's been out. It's so layered and nuanced of what the Black story is. And even just like, you got to think about it. Like, the Winter Soldier was sent to Wakanda. He spent a lot of time there. And so he even understands, like, the way he's woven into the story is beautiful too. And it deals with them losing, Steve Rogers. And, it's kind of the aftermath of that. It's a lot.
It's really good.
It's
a buddy cop, type of story. It's got so much history in it that is from the comics, that is tethered to real history, that you almost can't tell what part of it is real and what's not. You're like, hold on, I need to look that up, because I know that this part didn't go that way, but were they there? Like, hold up, like, wait a minute, the year's right. It's very So trust me, I'm all in. If we want to go back and do a retro episode on the show, I'm in it, because I was a huge fan.
And that's an incredible point that you brought up, as far as in relation to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. The history and just really embracing facts and truth and highlighting. We learn something in every film and show. They make it as authentic and organically true as possible.
They're not doing it all for naught. Someone's there.
They are making.
Saying, it has to mean something. If we're going to do it this big, it has to mean something.
And a huge proponent of that was the Stan Lee. He was one of those that he got it and did what he could when he could. And somebody has definitely. And again, I just want to I can attribute so much to, I think, the success of the Black Panther, and just really telling. Now it seems like ever since then, everything that's come after that has been, this does have a place in all of the universes, everywhere, in film in particular, and they are making it work. I love it.
Well, it's almost like we got another Black story, but not Black Panther was so beautiful and so regal and royal, and it just was like he was a king, and it was all those things. This is like what happens in America.
It's because
if you're handed the crown, what the reaction would be if you're handed the crown in this country.
And the
in Africa.
Right. And the beauty of it is, we always say that, Black history didn't start with slavery. There was a whole history before, long before that. And so that's what Black Panther made sure to present. Like, not everybody is in a struggle. Being Black doesn't automatically mean you have to be in a struggle, be born into, be this, that, and the third. So what they did, I love having, let's tell both sides of it. Let's be honest. And they still made certain points, because the fact that Killmonger was who he was, and how he was growing up here in the US, that was part of the story, and his journey was much different than T'Challa. So, but it could have been very different, more similar to T'Challa's, had he not been forsaken and forgotten and just erased, but anyway, I digress. Well, I agree. I love it.
I will say this: if there's even one, it sounds like you're going to watch it. But if there's even one iota that is like on the fence, the Derma Milaje, they appear. They show up. So watch it for that reason. Derma, they show up
and show out.
Yeah,
they do.
Listen, the Dora Milaje are. That right there, again, you can't get enough of that. Trust me. If I can build it, I'm gonna be one of them too. So, Momo Khan, let's get it. Let's get it. I got some decisions to make.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Moon Knight, it was everything. What do we give it? Yes. I give it 9 out of 10. What do you guys give it?
It gets a 10 out of 10.
A 10 for you, Christi? I love it.
I'm with Christi on this. It's definitely a 10 out of 10 for me.
They got it right.
I'm hooked.
Perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. The layers are
Don't
everything.
listen to me. It's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Watch it. Tune in again for our next episode of The BOP. We're here every Tuesday. We are the BLERD official podcast. Thank you, guys. We love you. Bye. Moon Knight.
Tune in every Tuesday for a new episode of The BOP, the BLERD official podcast.